I still remember the clatter of silverware on plates, the dull hum of conversation, the smell of overcooked roast chicken and mashed potatoes. It was a typical Sunday dinner at my parents' house. Mandatory, loud, and always somehow uncomfortable. I was 17. That evening, I'd had a rough week, failed my math test, my part-time job hours were cut, and my college application got rejected. When my mother casually asked how I was doing, I started to talk. And then I started to cry. But instead of comfort, my family burst out laughing. Oh no, my older sister Janine snorted. Here we go again. Waterworks. My dad grinned over his beer. You'd think someone told her the dog died. Seriously, my younger brother Tyler chimed in. You're like a walking soap opera. They laughed. I cried harder. I remember blinking through tears, trying to find one sympathetic face at that table. I found none. Even my mom, who asked the question in the first place, looked more annoyed than concerned. You need to toughen up, she said. The world doesn't stop just because you're sad. And that was it. My breakdown became a family joke for years. Remember when you cried at dinner because your boss cut your hours? Janine would chuckle during Christmas. Man, that was pathetic. I stopped opening up. I became quiet, distant, focused. I worked 2 jobs through community college while they laughed behind my back. At 21, I packed up and left. No goodbye hugs, no tears from them. Just a couple sarcastic comments about how long I'd last out there with that sensitive personality. Fast forward 15 years. I'm 32 now. A licensed therapist with a private practice in a mid-sized city. I have a full client list, a modest but beautiful apartment, and peace. More peace than I ever thought I'd have. I work with people who've been mocked, dismissed, misunderstood. People like me. And then, a month ago, I saw an email in my inbox with the subject line. Hi, it's Janine. I stared at it for a full 10 minutes before I opened it. Hey, I know it's been a while. I found your website through Google. I didn't realize you were doing so well. Your office looks amazing. Anyway, I wanted to ask, is there any chance I could book a session with you? I'm really struggling. Things have been bad. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. For a second, I thought it was a prank. But it wasn't. The next day, my assistant confirmed it. Janine had booked a full evaluation, and she wasn't the only one. 2 days later, Tyler sent a request. Then, a week after that, my mother emailed me. All 3 of them, asking for help. And not just help, but my help, Janine, had gone through a divorce and lost custody of her kids. Tyler was battling severe anxiety and panic attacks. My mom was spiraling after losing her job and facing massive debt. I thought about denying the requests, blocking the emails, but I didn't. Not right away. I needed to know something first. I needed to see them, really see them, after all these years. So, I approved Janine's intake. She walked into my office last Tuesday, sat down on the same couch dozens of hurting people have cried on before, and barely held herself together. Her voice was hoarse. You probably hate me. I didn't answer right away. I just handed her a tissue box. I've made so many mistakes, she whispered. I pushed everyone away, and now I don't even know how I ended up here. I wanted to tell her that I knew exactly how she ended up here. That mocking someone's pain doesn't make yours disappear. That ignoring emotions doesn't make you stronger. It just buries everything until it explodes. But instead, I nodded and said gently, Tell me what's been going on. She broke down. I watched the same sister who mocked my tears now cry. In my space, on my time. And I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, clarity. She needed help. And I could help her. But it wasn't going to be easy, for either of us. And I hadn't even seen the others yet. Janine's first session drained me in a way I hadn't expected. Not emotionally, I had long since built that therapist muscle. But something deeper, something older. I guess when the person in front of you is part of the reason you became who you are, the room feels heavier. She cried through most of it. Told me how her husband had cheated, how she'd lost her job, and how no therapist seemed to understand her. She said she came to me because I was the only person who ever really felt things. I didn't say anything to that. Just kept my voice calm, professional, a wall between the past and the present. But I couldn't forget how she used to laugh when I cried. A week later, it was Tyler. He didn't come in confidently, like I expected. He was skinnier than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous twitch in his left hand. He avoided eye contact, shuffled into the seat and mumbled, "Hey." He didn't bring up our childhood, didn't apologize. Instead, he just said, "I can't sleep. I keep thinking about things. I think I'm losing it." We talked. I asked questions. He tried to act like it was no big deal, like talking to your estranged sibling about mental breakdowns was normal. But toward the end, his voice cracked. "Do you think people like me can get better?" I paused. That sentence hung in the air. People like me. I remembered being 13, sobbing after a bullying incident, and Tyler standing in the hallway with our dad laughing, calling me soft. Now he sat in front of me, fidgeting, trying not to fall apart. I answered honestly, "Yes, but it takes work. Real work." He nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I don't want to be this person anymore." When he left, he didn't look back. But I saw the shame in his posture. He knew what he had done. Maybe he wasn't ready to say it, but he knew. And then came my mother. She didn't book through my website. She showed up unannounced. I was just leaving for lunch when I saw her in the lobby. She looked older, worn, but her eyes still had that sharp, judgmental flicker until they met mine. Then it turned into something else. Something like regret. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," I replied, neutral. "Can we talk?" I checked the time. "You don't have an appointment." I didn't think you'd agree if I asked. She wasn't wrong. I motioned toward the office. 15 minutes. She sat on the couch stiffly, like she was visiting a stranger. "I know I was hard on you," she began. "But I thought I was doing what was best. I wanted to toughen you up for the world." "The world didn't laugh at me when I cried," I said, keeping my tone even. "You did." She flinched. "It was subtle, but I saw it. I'm not here to fight," she whispered. "I lost my job. The mortgage is drowning me, and I don't know where else to turn." She looked up, eyes glassy. "I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking." I folded my arms. This was the woman who once called me too emotional to survive, who told me therapy was for the weak, who said I was wasting my life by listening to crybabies. And now she was in my office begging me to save her. "I can't offer you therapy," I said. "Not ethically." Her face fell. "But," I continued, "I can recommend someone good, someone I trust." She didn't say thank you, just nodded, stood up slowly, and left. I sat in silence for a while after. My chest felt heavy, not with sadness, but with the weight of everything they never gave me. Apologies, understanding, validation. But I also felt something else. Strength. They were all falling apart. And I wasn't. They used to mock me for feeling too much. The months that followed were surreal. Janine continued therapy. She missed a few sessions. Old habits die hard, but she showed up more than I expected. She stopped crying quite as much, started listening more. One day she said, "I never knew you had this kind of strength." I wanted to say, "You didn't want to know." But I just nodded. "Thanks." Tyler stayed consistent. He began doing the actual hard work, journaling, meditating, confronting some of the toxic masculinity he once wore like armor. One afternoon, he finally said it. "I used to think crying made you weak. That's what Dad told me. That's what we all believed." I just looked at him. He swallowed. "But I was wrong. I see that now. You weren't weak. You were the only one strong enough to feel what we were all too scared to deal with. That one hit. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't need to. That sentence meant more than any sorry ever could. As for my mother, she never came back. Not for therapy, not for help. But one day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Inside, just one sentence. I wish I had listened when you cried. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it, tucked it into the back of my journal, and closed it. Because I didn't need their validation anymore. I had built my own life, my own name, my own peace. I'd spent years thinking I needed revenge. That success would feel like a trophy I could hold over their heads. But now, it just felt like freedom. They had laughed when I cried at the dinner table. Now, I had a waiting list of people who trusted me with their deepest pain. I had clients whose lives were changing, whose hearts were opening, whose minds were healing, and I had something they might never understand. Empathy, strength, peace. I didn't get the family I wanted, but I became the person I needed, and somehow, that was enough. Now I was the one helping others feel it all, and part of me wondered if this was the justice I never thought I'd get.